The Hellboy duology is a series of 2 films written and directed by Guillermo del Toro based on the comic series of the same name. They star Ron Perlman as Hellboy, a demon summoned from hell as a baby during World War II in a failed Nazi experiment. Rather than being used for the forces of evil, however, Hellboy is taken in and raised by a US government scientist played by John Hurt, and now as an adult fights for and protects humanity against supernatural threats alongside his friends and colleagues.
Let's go fight some monsters.
The first film, released in 2004, gives me really strong X-Men 1 and 2 vibes. Like those movies, Hellboy is based around a secret group of societal misfits with diverse superhuman abilities who, despite being hated and feared by much of the general populace, devote their lives to protecting those same people from harm. Besides Hellboy, the main supporting players are Abe Sapien, a telekinetic fish creature played by Doug Jones, who may or may not be from a black lagoon, and Liz Sherman, a pyrokinetic woman played by Selma Blair who has difficulty controlling her power, making her a danger to those around her. Also, like the first few X-Men films, Hellboy was released at a time where CGI technology wasn't anywhere near what it is today, and so the film makes fantastic use of full-body makeup, practical creature effects, production design, and stunts, specifically with ample amounts of highly choreographed flying wire work and martial arts. Ron Perlman's performance as Hellboy is easily the highlight of the movie. He does a great job of imbuing the character with some real humanity despite the limitations of acting under that much makeup. It's definitely a career highlight for Perlman, and he's become hugely iconic in the role.
He sounded like me, he walked like me, he talked like me, and all I had to basically do was, sit around for 4 hours while they put the makeup and the costume on.
I wish I could do something about this.
In contrast to his frightening appearance and rough-around-the-edges demeanor, Hellboy is really kind of a big teddy bear on the inside. He loves cats, keeping about 20 of them in his apartment, and he's really just looking for acceptance and love at the end of the day.
Even although Hellboy is 6'5", bright red, has horns and a tail and all that, he's a regular Joe. He's a blue-collar, hard-working guy. His job just happens to be a monster hunter.
Aside from the character of Hellboy, his complicated relationship with on-again, off-again girlfriend Liz, and some great visuals, however, the rest of the film is alright. The plot is pretty bare bones, and most of the supporting characters, including all of the villains, are pretty forgettable in my opinion.
Excuse me?
However, there is definitely some solid potential to be found in the premise and the world of Hellboy. That potential would be reached 4 years later in Hellboy 2: The Golden Army, a movie that to me is the absolute best kind of sequel. A sequel that takes everything that worked about the original and improves on it, then also improves on or mitigates the stuff that didn't work as well, and even goes on to introduce even more awesome and creative elements into the mix. Where the first film reminded me of X-Men, this one reminds me of Pan's Labyrinth, the critically acclaimed 2006 fantasy film that Guillermo del Toro made in between the 2 Hellboy movies, especially in regards to its creature design, makeup, and general production, which are truly some of the most inventive and fun designs that I've ever seen.
Viscerally, you think it belongs in the universe and it makes sense in that universe. It made sense to me. And 50% of all this is instinct.
Hellboy 2 also doubles down on the interesting character stuff from the first movie. This time around, in addition to having to save the world, Perlman's Hellboy is presented with a moral dilemma where he has to choose between the supernatural world, which fully accepts him, and the human world, which fears him. The film's villain is Nuada, Prince of the Fairy Realm, who has sworn vengeance on humanity for driving his people underground, as well as for all the damage we've done to the Earth. He works great as a foil to Hellboy, who he rightly points out would be far more accepted in a world without humans, a world he wants to create.
You have more in common with us than with them. You could be a king.
Nuada isn't the most original or complex villain in the world, but I appreciate that he's not just a big evil guy, and I like the dynamic between he and his twin sister, Princess Nuala, who, despite opposing one another, are magically connected and share everything, including their memories and even injuries. The other supporting characters are also much more interesting this time around. Abe Sapien gets a lot more material to work with in this movie. I absolutely love the scene where he and Hellboy get drunk together, sing a little duet, and attempt to drunkenly suss out the problems in their respective love lives. It's honestly one of the most charming scenes in any comic book film. Additionally, Myers, the fish-out-of-water everyman who's sort of meant to be the audience surrogate in the original Hellboy, has been written out of this sequel entirely.
You had him transferred to Antarctica.
He said he liked the cold.
He's replaced on the team by a new character named Johann Krauss, played by Seth MacFarlane, doing basically the same flamboyant German accent he uses for the fish in American Dad.
We're moving in.
Krauss is one of the most creative superhuman characters that I've ever seen in a movie. He's made up entirely of ectoplasmic smoke and inhabits a specialized containment suit which he can enter and exit at will to possess and animate basically anything else that he desires.
What is beautiful is I thought what the ultimate bureaucrat would be be? And I thought a guy with no body, like literally no body. And I thought it would be very nice to have all attitude and no physical features. Because then Johann is a character. He's decidedly just a personality.
At the beginning of the movie, Krauss and Hellboy initially butt heads, and all of the banter between the two is terrific. I particularly like this scene where the two of them have a fight in the gym locker room. Hellboy 2 is rife with these quirky little character moments and background details, and they go a long way towards making the movie stand out as something truly unique and memorable among its contemporaries.
Nice baby.
I'm not a baby, I'm a tumor.
It also does a great job at teasing a sequel without compromising the integrity of its own story, or resorting to ending on a cliffhanger. The only criticism I really have about Hellboy 2: The Golden Army is the actual Golden Army itself, a fabled mechanical army controlled by 3 pieces of a MacGuffin the bad guy needs to collect in order to bring the army to life and destroy humanity.
My brother needs this. The third piece of the...
There's a lot of hyping up of the Golden Army throughout the film, but I'm thinking that Nuada is way underestimating the capabilities of modern weaponry, because I really don't see a scenario where the Golden Army would even be able to prevail against the US Army by itself, let alone the rest of the human world. Unless, of course, it's capable of a lot more than we see during the admittedly brief period of time that they appear on screen. This film is really much more about its characters than its plot, though, so it's by no means a deal breaker, just a small gripe. Oh, and there's also this hilariously terrifying makeup job on a younger version of Hellboy that we see during the film's opening scene, but mercifully it's never seen again after the title card. Hellboy 2: The Golden Army really is one of the best comic book movie sequels that's ever been made, far surpassing the original in my opinion. Unfortunately, despite critical acclaim, the film underperformed at the box office, barely making its budget back. To be fair, there was some pretty stiff competition in the summer of 2008. The movie released only a week before The Dark Knight did, and this at a time before audiences had gotten accustomed to seeing 7 or 8 new superhero movies every year. Still, both Hellboy 2 and the original have since developed quite the cult following, and a sequel to cap off the trilogy has been teased and speculated over for years. A third Hellboy film eventually did begin pre-production in 2014, however without the involvement of Guillermo del Toro, who wrote and directed both of the previous movies, or Ron Perlman, who's been good friends with del Toro for decades and was unwilling to return to the franchise without him.
I quit.
So the movie was instead reworked to be a reboot, and that's a pretty big shame. The seeds for a third Hellboy movie planted throughout the first 2, especially The Golden Army, are pretty tantalizing, and I'm disappointed that we'll probably never get to see them grow to fruition, at least under this particular creative team. The third Hellboy movie that we are getting, however, comes out this week. Check back here tomorrow for the review, and if you like this video, you'd be helping me out a whole lot by hitting the like button, subscribing if you're new, and ringing the bell to stay up to date on future videos. I know everyone asks for that, but it really does help.
God, I hate YouTube.
Leave a comment down below letting me know any of your thoughts on the Hellboy movies, and check out some of the other great stuff I've got up here on my channel. Until next time, thanks as always so much to all you guys for watching, and take care.